Hi students, and welcome to today's live IELTS class. My name is Adrian and I'm streaming to you from beautiful Budapest in the heart of downtown. I hope everybody is having a great weekend so far. Today we are focusing on the IELTS speaking section, specifically part 2. Hello students. Hi Daniel, good to see you in this class. Awaz, I saw you as well. Good to see members and our regular students. Hikmatillo, Pachu, Happy Singh, Hesham. Nice to see many of you in class on time. This lesson is brought to you by aehelp.com for academic IELTS. Check us out there. And for the general version, visit us at gieltshelp.com and join our premium package to get access to 6 original practice exams, over 100 hours of video lessons, and a fully interactive course for your phone, tablet, PC until the end of this week. Basically, that means tomorrow. We still have our Black Friday super discount of 40%. Use code BLKFDAY when you check out on those websites. While we wait for a few more students, this is what the websites look like. This is the academic version here. Click that big red button to join, and then you'll have a My Student account that you can log into at the top. For the general IELTS, it's the green background here. Click that big red button to join us there. Also, download our app, Academic IELTS Help, to improve your scores. You can link the app with the website to study from the same account. And if you have questions, you can always send me an email, adrian@aehelp.com, ADRIAN, my name, at aehelp.com. All right, everyone, let's get into today's part 2 speaking lesson. So again, the speaking has 3 parts. Part 1 will ask some questions about you, maybe about your hobbies, your colors, your favorite color, clothing, clothes you like, food, the food you like, your favorite food. So just some questions on general topics. That's part 1. And then when you're finished part 1, the examiner will pass you a card with some questions on it, as well as some note paper and a pencil. Okay? So basically the examiner will say, that is the end of part 1. Now we will begin part 2. For part 2, here's a card with some questions. They may say "don't wish," and then you will have 2 minutes to speak. I will tell you when to start, when to stop. Are you ready? Yes, I am. And then the examiner will say, all right, turn over the card. Your 1 minute preparation time begins now. This is a speaking class, students, so make sure to speak. Okay, so speak and repeat. It's great that you're commenting and chatting. Also speak. Practice your vocabulary, practice your pronunciation. Copy my words, copy my intonation, copy my intensity. It's good, okay? It's good to be confident and a little bit on the intense side when you're in the speaking section. So, my accent, by the way, is West Coast North American. There's some weird international concept of Canadian and American accent, but that's not true. There's no such thing really as a Canadian and American accent. There are some differences, but it's West Coast, East Coast, Central, Southern North American. We all have different accents. Okay, so I'm West Coast. I'm Vancouver, San Francisco, Los Angeles, that style. Okay, all right, so you turn over the card and then you see this question. Part 2, talk about an object that you borrowed. First step, read the question carefully. What is this item? What did you use it for? When and who did you borrow it from? Why did you decide to borrow it? And was it useful in the end? All right. So that is our question. Maybe some of you are remembering now, hey, wait a second. We did the part 3 for this not so long ago. And if you're thinking that, you are right. We did do part 3 because part 3 is connected to part 2. All right. So we read the question carefully. One tip I can give you to make sure that you don't make a big mistake when you answer is read the topic question twice. Okay? So it's a good idea to read this topic question twice. Okay, so you want to read that topic question twice to make sure that you are exactly on topic. Okay. Yu Chen, I see your question. To be a member of the YouTube channel, you have to click the join button beside the subscribe button. If you don't see it, don't worry. Send me an email and I'll help you out. Okay. All right, Neil, I'm happy you're enjoying the seminar so far. Great. Okay, so make sure to read this twice just to make sure that you are on target. Okay, so talk about an object that you borrowed, not someone else, not an object you lent to someone, but an object that you borrowed from someone. So someone lent it to you. Okay, it's a good idea to reread this twice. Many students make a huge mistake by talking off topic. All right. So I read the question. What's my next step? What do I do after reading the card carefully? Okay, let's work this out together. Create a nice response. Step 1, read the question very carefully. Okay. Step 2, what do I do? Okay. You don't necessarily have to read all the questions twice, Hikmatillo, but just definitely that topic question. Okay. Step 2, Awaz says identify the topic. So it's an item. Yeah. So identify the topic. Okay. So here it's a borrowed item. Item I borrowed. Okay. Which means I'm talking about an object. Okay, and when I'm talking about an object, what do I need to consider including in my response, regardless of the question? So there can be a lot of different questions about objects. Talk about an unusual object that you saw. Talk about a piece of technology that's useful. So there are lots of different object questions. Talk about an item that you use to clean your house. This one is talk about an item that you borrowed. What do you need to include when you're talking about an object? Not activities, Hassan. Activities is more for events. Okay, you need to think about activities for events. For objects, what do you consider to give clear communication to your listener? Okay, Rajveer says its appearance. Absolutely. So what does that object look like? Okay, with physical concepts like an object or a human, you should describe its appearance, at least a few words on what it looks like. Good. What else? So its appearance. What else should you include to give clear communication about an object? Okay. Before you start even thinking about objects, you need to think about these clear points. Yeah, there you go, Pachu. It's origin. Where did you get it? Right? So it's origin. So appearance, what it looks like. Its origin. Where does it come from? Did you buy it? Did you borrow it? Did you find it? Did someone give it to you as a gift? So what's the origin of the object? Here, it's obviously borrowing it from someone. Yvonne says it's functionality. Yeah, or simply put, it's function. So how do you use it? Yeah, it's function. How does it work? Okay, think about it. It's like you're talking to an alien or you're grandparents that might not know this object, right? So far, so good. We got a little bit more. So its appearance, its origin, its function, and what else should you maybe include? You don't need to say, I don't know why everybody's hung up on laptops so much. Its value, okay, it's not bad. Olis again says its purpose. Yeah, its purpose, its utility for you. Okay? In this case, for you. So the way you're able to use it, all right? An object can have many functions. What's its worth? What's its value for you? Okay? All right, so think about those whenever you're thinking about talking about an object. Think about its appearance, think about its origin, its function, its utility. Now, when you're speaking in part 2, if you get stuck, okay, or if you run out of ideas, you can always remember these 4 key components and talk about them a little bit more, okay? That's a very useful tip, so keep that in mind, okay? If you get stuck in your speaking, look at your notes, okay? Look at the card and remember these components to help you elaborate, okay? So, oh yeah, some people use this object for such and such reasons as well. And in fact, I ended up using it similarly in relation to what I was saying before. So when you get stuck, think about these elements to help you elaborate and go into more detail. Great. So we've identified that it's an object. We know we need to include these components. What's my next step? Okay, what's my next step? What do I do after I've identified these important elements? Step 3, it's a very important one. Okay. Yeah, Roshni says choose the topic. Careful with the spelling on topic, Roshni. Choose 2 to 3 possible answers. Aha. So not just one, okay, but choose at least 2 or 3 that you think, that might work. All right. Okay. So remember, when you're choosing these topics, should be easy and unique. Okay. So you should try to think about an answer that you can talk about easily for 90 seconds to 2 minutes. And it's probably not the same answer that every other student is trying to give, okay? A lot of people are giving the answer laptop. All right, I'll put that up there as a possible choice. Personally, I wouldn't go with that one myself, but it's possible, okay? What else? Car, okay, automobile. That might be a smart one, especially if you have good vocabulary about cars. Sure. Hassan says a Nikon D7 camera. Is it Nikon with 1K? Yeah. Okay. I like that idea, Hassan. I think that's a clever one. All right. We have some great answers coming up. Harky says a geometry box. All right. Yvonne says a printer. Okay. Sure. Then we have Danielle, a tent for camping. That's a very smart choice, I think. Tent for camping. All right. If you have some ideas around that, and especially if you like camping. Okay, Roshni says dress a formal dress. Yeah, that might work, especially for women. Men, not so much, right? Men generally don't borrow dresses from each other. But if you're a woman, it could be possible. Just careful. Make sure you know vocabulary for it. I like Jinder Kaur's answer. He says bike. How about a bike? Bike's a pretty good one. All right, so we have lots. Again, in the real exam, you only need to think of 2 or 3 and then choose the one that you think, yeah, that's pretty good. Okay, let's go through these, and I'll give you my 2 bits, and then we'll go into picking one and talking more detail. So laptop, I wouldn't do, okay? Why? Because it's complicated and popular. I think laptop and phone might be a very popular choice. Many students will talk about borrowing their laptop from their friend. And I think actually talking about a laptop, you can get into some awkward situations where it becomes confusing. So I wouldn't talk about the laptop, okay? Now, a Nikon D7 camera, if you have strong English, Hassan chose this one, and you choose a DSLR camera, let's say that you went on vacation to a place that has beautiful scenery like Niagara Falls, and you wanted to take some high quality pictures, then this camera could be a good choice. But again, you have to be careful because you might get into some difficult situations describing the reasons for borrowing a DSLR camera, where you can adjust the aperture, the ISO, the shutter speed. You need to have that vocabulary potentially, okay? Geometry box, no, for the same reason, okay? Difficult to talk about trigonometry. Okay, so a geometry box, talking about geometry, trigonometry, that's a complex situation. You're going to get into some tough situations, okay? A printer could be good, all right? I think a printer might be fairly simple to talk about. It's quite unique. Probably not too many students are choosing a printer as their answer for this, so I think printer could be a good choice. A tent could be a good choice if you're going camping and you need a place to sleep, to stay dry. If it's raining, I think there's a lot of information that you can provide talking about a tent, going camping. I think that's a great one, okay? And I think a bike is a very good one as well. So I would say that these 3 from these are probably the best, okay? It's an object. One of you put money. Okay. And money is not really an object, so careful with that. Borrowing money, it's an intangible. Although you might have a physical bill, money is actually just a tool. So money would not be the best choice either. Okay, a telescope some could be good, but again, careful. Okay, students, so take a vote. Let me know which one you think. So printer, tent, or bike. Let's choose one of these. Choose one, and the one that I see come up the most, we'll go with that one and we'll develop that answer. Okay, so the choices are between printer, tent, and a bike. Okay, formal dress, it's not going to work for our male audience, so we can't do that one. Okay. Awaz says tent. Roshni says tent. Amar says, let's do a bike. Okay. Jupam Gupta says, I really like that camera. Sue says, let's do a tent. Akmal, bike, tent, bike, printer, bike. Bike is the best. Okay, I think bike seems like the winning one here. I have a feeling that more people are familiar with the concept of a bike than a tent here. So, but not to worry, students. I challenge you on your own time in the next few days to pick another one of these and try a task to response for this question, and you can always send it to me by email, and I'll gladly listen and let you know your band score anyway. So for today's class, we'll do a bike. Okay, borrowing a bike. All right, so bike it is. It's a good choice. If you were in the IELTS exam and you got this question and you chose bike, I think you'd be on the right track to get a high band score. Okay, so bike is the choice. All right, now we need to take some notes. That's our next step. So step number 4, some usable notes. Quickly write down some usable notes. Usable, okay? A lot of times I see students writing down notes that they cannot use. That doesn't make sense. That's just wasting your time. So visualize and write down some notes. Okay, so what should your notes include? Bike it is. What are you going to start writing? Okay. What makes sense? What can you use in your speaking? Okay, Sue says red. Good. Yogesh says cross X. Yeah. Let's go with mountain bike. Sure. So it's red. Mountain bike. Hikmatillo says 18 speed. All right. It's not a motorbike, Shubham. It's just a regular old pedal bike. Okay? We're not talking about a motorbike, guys. We're simply talking about a pedal bike. A pedal bike. A bike that you pedal. You're not borrowing your friend's crotch rocket. Okay? All right. Students, be really careful, okay? You can't get too imaginative and get into awkward situations. So it's unlikely that you're borrowing a racing bike from one of your friends. And if you start to be too creative and try to express your desires, like you wish you borrowed this awesome Ducati racing bike from your friend, and you start talking about that, you could get yourself into a very difficult situation. So keep it simple. Remember, your goal here is not to live out your dreams. It's not to say something extremely fancy and wild. It's to get a high band score, okay? So keep it simple, okay? You can use whatever information you know, Marzia, all right? Color for sure. You can say it's a racing bike or a city bike. It's 18 speed, okay? That's good enough. All right. So there we have a little bit of description. Okay. Okay. So that's what it looks like. Now, what else do I need? Okay. So Hassan says it's German made. That's fine. Okay. Keep in mind, when you're thinking about your notes, to help write your notes quickly, again, you should be thinking about these in this order: appearance, origin, function, utility. Okay? So appearance, check. We just did that. Now some notes on the origin. Where did you get it from? Usable notes. Okay? So where did you get your bike from? What's the origin? Again, the topic here is you borrowed it. All right? Don't get lost in too much detail. You can always go back and expand. So it was big wheels or big tires, it's fine. All right, Wed Dry says friend, but who's your friend? Okay, so be a little bit more specific. If I write friend, okay, this is not usable notes because saying to the examiner that I borrowed it from my friend, you don't need to write that down to remember saying that. Okay, so you want to be more specific. Okay, even Uncle Happy Singh is not specific enough. Okay, so Roshni says brother Tony. Okay, Sure. So older brother Tony, that's more usable, right? That's a more usable note. Okay. Somebody's saying stepbrother Tony. Sure. Okay, give me more notes. So older brother Tony. Give me more notes. So origin, function. What's the function of this bike? This is where you want to visualize. Okay. Okay, a couple people are saying maybe giving a little bit about his personality is a good idea. That's usable notes. So Tony, because I know he's kind, he's reliable, he'll lend it to me. It's good. Okay. So what did I borrow the bike for? Angel Janet says for a race, for a triathlon, for trekking. I would keep it a little bit simpler. Transport to a friend's wedding, possibly. Okay, Rajveer says to commute to the city. Okay, I would do something like this. Go to work after school. Okay, would be a simple one. Again, remember, students, you're not looking for really fancy answers. So being unique and original doesn't mean that you have to be really fancy. You can get a really high band score as long as you speak clearly to the examiner on just kind of general concepts like going from work to school. Now, as soon as you have that concept, then the next question would be why? So why do you need? And Rajveer, I'm not sure if you're in this class. I remember Rajveer was asking, how do I expand my ideas for part 2? So how do I visualize, generate ideas quickly so that I can speak fluently and get a high score? The trick is this type of concept where we come up with these ideas, these words, and then we apply some critical thinking like, okay, I borrowed my bike from my brother Tony, who's reliable and kind, and I borrowed it so I can get to school or I can get to work after school. Why? Why did I borrow Tony's bike to get to work after school? Hikmatillo says, because it's far. Okay? So because, I'm just doing this for you. I would do the notes a little bit different. I'll show you in a moment. Because it's far. Okay, how far? So how far? How far is your work away from school? And again, it doesn't have to be the truth. I think if you're trying to come up with an honest, truthful answer about something that you borrowed, you might not come up with anything, okay? So Hassan says 5K, 10K, sure. Okay. So it's 10 kilometers away, let's say, okay? So my notes here would actually be this, okay? So I'm just showing you my logic of thinking, but all I would have to write here is 10K, 30 minutes to get there. Okay. So these would be my notes. Okay, I would write down 10 km, 30 minutes. And I probably wouldn't even write minutes. I would just write mins like that. Okay, use abbreviations. All right. So good. Akash is now starting to think critically. Akash is saying no cabs. All right, great. Okay. So I'm going through my notes. Now I have the appearance, I have the origin, I have the reason for borrowing it. Okay. Remember, it's an 18-speed bike, so it's comfortable, it's fast, right? You can switch the gears. And then before you move on, make sure that you, again, think about these. So we've talked about appearance, we've talked about origin, we've talked about its function, right? Utility for you. And if we go back to the question, don't forget the elements here. When did you borrow it? So we still need the time. Why did you decide to borrow it? And was it useful in the end? So you want to make sure that you have at least one note. Okay, this is a very important tip. You want to make sure that you have at least one note for each of these questions. Okay, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 questions here. So that means that you should have at least 6 pieces of notes to remind you of each of these 6 elements. Who? We have that. What? We have that. What was the item? We have that. When did you borrow it? Okay. Boom, that's how fast I would write that. Okay, 2019 summer job. All right, when do you have work? Probably in the summer. Okay, your school is still in session maybe. You haven't finished school yet, but your job has already started. It's your 2019 summer job. Okay. Next question. Why did you decide to borrow it? Okay. We haven't answered that one. So why did you decide to borrow it? Why not just buy a bike? Okay. So why did you decide to borrow it? Quickly give me a nice note for that. Again, quick, speed is important. Okay, why borrow it? Why not just buy one? Okay, Ekmatil says because I was struggling to get to work. Sure. It's available, it's economical. Hassan says I just needed it for 1 week. Okay, or for the summer job only. Absolutely. Okay, that would be my note there. 1 month, no money. Okay, and was it useful in the end? Made money, saved time and energy. Writing yes, it was useful is not a useful note. Okay, so you made money, you saved time, you saved energy. So yes, it was useful in the end. Absolutely, okay? Nice and fast. So in the 1 minute, you have about enough time if you practice this skill and you're effective at developing your ideas, visualizing, taking notes. The 1 minute should be enough. Again, it takes practice to identify that it's an object. You need those 4 elements. Think about a couple of different options. Settle with the option bike. Come up with some concepts, write down these 8 sets of notes, and then you should have at least another 15 or so seconds to take this very important step number 5, which is coming up with your first sentence. Okay. So what is your first sentence? When the examiner says, your 1 minute preparation time is up, please begin speaking. Prepare that first sentence. You have to have it ready to go. If you start with something like, okay, Is this a good way to start? So is this a good first sentence? I have borrowed many items before. It is good to borrow items when you or when I, many students will even say you here, when you don't have enough money or if you only need it for a short time. So many students will start like this. Is this a good way to start with this first sentence? So the examiner says, okay, your 1 minute preparation time is up. Please begin speaking. And then the person begins by saying, I have borrowed many items before. It is good to borrow items when you don't have enough money or if you need it for a short time. And then some people will even start with, thank you for this opportunity to talk about borrowing items. Okay, so some people will even start like this. Is this good? So many of you are saying no. Some of you are like, yeah. Okay. Hikmatillo says the question only asks about one item. Yeah. So this is bad. Okay. And I know that especially in India, there's this myth going around that this is a good way to start a part 2 response. It's not. Okay. First of all, the examiners hear this from so many students because there's this myth. Okay. The reason why it's not good is because this is not answering the question. Okay. So this type of speaking is off topic and does not answer the question. Talk about an item that you borrowed. Very good, Hikmatillo. You picked up on that. Absolutely. It's not asking you to, did you borrow items in the past? Why are reasons people borrowing items? Okay. So you don't need to thank the examiner for the opportunity. You paid money for the exam. You paid to be there. Of course, you're there to do this. So no need to thank anyone. Okay, I know you're trying to be polite, but it's unnecessary. This is what's called filler. It's filler speaking. You're wasting your seconds. You're not getting any band scores for this. Every examiner knows that somebody can memorize this kind of phrasing in another language. It doesn't show your language ability. So this is not a good way to start your response, okay? The examiners do not like to hear this kind of answer to these questions. It's generic, it's not original, it's off topic, all right? Absolutely, Ajit. Don't generalize it. So, what is the right way? Okay, so this is not the right way. So we want a good sentence. So can you give me the right sentence? Okay, so start with a clear, direct, and I'm going to capitalize that, direct answer. Okay. And that's easy to do as well, okay? You don't need fillers in the beginning. So Hassan says, during my apprenticeship last summer, I was really in need for a bike temporarily, okay? Or a temporary bike. Yeah, it's fine, Hassan. It's good, okay? So Priyanka says, last month I bought a red bike from my stepbrother Tom to get to work. Very good. It's a nice direct answer. Roshni says, a year ago for the summer days, I borrowed a red colored mountain bike from my elder brother Tony. Very good. So that's a direct response. That's what examiners like to hear as the first sentence. And you want to say that quickly, so you need to have that ready. As soon as the examiner says, okay, your 1 minute preparation time is up, please begin speaking. Writing your notes? Okay. Last year, in the summer of 2019, I borrowed a red specialized 18-speed mountain bike from my elder brother, Tony. Good. Okay. Very good. Let's keep going. Next sentence. Okay. So use the notes. Okay. What we have here, this information, work through it. It doesn't have to be the exact same order. You can move around a bit. The important point is just use them. Okay. So we have this sentence. Give me the next sentence. And again, students, remember, this is a speaking class, so speak and repeat. All right? Hikmatillo, you don't even need to say, so I'm going to talk about. Just talk about it. Okay, an item which I borrowed last summer from my brother, Tony, to get to work after school is his red mountain bike. Okay? So you don't even, again, Ahmed Gali, same. You don't need to say, I'm going to speak about a bike. Just speak about it. So I borrowed a bike last month, use it to get to work and run some personal errands. So speak directly about it. Okay? All right, continue my sentence. Wet Dry says, I have to go to my summer job. So that's the idea. That's the right idea. Okay. Just Karan, let's stay with the same topic of the bike. So let's not jump to books. That would be off topic. Okay, Hassan says it's a mountain bike. It's red. It's made in Germany. It has good, strong wheels. And 18 speed. 18 speed is not the actual kilometers per hour, Hassan. It's just an 18 speed. It means it has 6 gears in the back, 3 gears in the front, and you can move through 18 different speed settings. Okay. So Awaz says, because it was too hot outside and I was lazy to walk to work. Yeah, use those notes. Remember the 10 kilometers. So I got a job working as a cashier at a grocery store, which was about 10 kilometers from my school, and I simply didn't have enough time to get to work on time, to get to my job on time after classes on foot. Unfortunately, there were no public transit options available, and a cab would have been simply too expensive. I didn't have enough money at that time to buy my own bike, nor did I want to, since this job was only for a few months. Therefore, I asked my brother Tony to lend me his, as he wasn't using it much anyway. Thankfully, my big bro is a kind-hearted person, and he had no problems lending me his bike. All right, so you just saw me kind of go off there on my own and express my thoughts. You can be this fluent, Okay, so all I'm doing here is visualizing the situation. I'm seeing myself at school, I'm seeing my workplace, I'm keeping it simple. Otherwise, you can absolutely use slang and idiomatic language in part 2, part 3, part 1. You just have to make sure that you're using it correctly. Mdadul, I was just fluently writing there. If there's a spelling mistake, I'll check it in a second. Fortunately, spelling mistakes don't matter much in your speaking. Okay, so here we go. Let's see what's happening here. All right. So here, why am I borrowing it, right? So the function that I'm using it for. So I got a job working as a cashier at a grocery store, which was about 10 kilometers from my school, and I simply didn't have enough time to get to my job on time after classes on foot. Unfortunately, there were no public transit options available, and a cab would have been simply too expensive. This is your present perfect conditional here, so showing high level grammar. I didn't have enough money at that time to buy my own bike, nor did I want to, since this job was for a few months only. Therefore, I asked my brother Tony to lend me his, as he wasn't using it much anyway. Thankfully, my big bro is a kind-hearted person, and he had no problems lending me his bike. Okay, so far so good. What should I do at this point? So I've gotten it this far, so I know who I lent it from, when I borrowed it, or sorry, who I borrowed it from, when I borrowed it, what I used it for, what it was. So far so good. What should I do now? Okay, what do I do after this? What's my most clever strategy or technique to help me get that high band score? Okay, Wet Dry says usefulness. Was it useful? Absolutely. You want to be thinking about that, Wet Dry and Akmal. Yeah, Hassan. Perfect. Hassan. Two big thumbs up. Fantastic. Yeah, check the questions. Okay, so at this point, look at the card and your notes. See if you answered all the questions and used all of your notes. Absolutely. That's what you want to do. Okay, make sure you're not missing any questions. If you miss the questions, you'll lose marks. All right? So the question asks, why did you decide to borrow it? Okay, we've answered that. Was it useful in the end? So answer that question. Was it useful in the end? And again, I highly recommend answering directly. Okay, so answer questions directly so the examiner knows that you are completing the task. Okay, so what I mean by that is here, I would answer it by saying it was absolutely useful to borrow the bike instead of trying to walk or buy my own, as I was able to save not only money, but also time and energy. This way, when I got home from work, I was still able to have a few hours to complete my homework and hang out with Tony to play some video games. So it worked out well for the both of us in some sense. Okay, now if I still have time, okay, and I'm like, oh, I still have some time, the examiner hasn't stopped me yet, and they're looking at me like, are you going to keep talking or what's going on? Yeah, maybe you can still throw another sentence in there. What can I do? I can elaborate by potentially using some notes. So did I use all of my notes here? Maybe, maybe not. Looking at my notes, 18 speed, that will help me to elaborate. Okay, so I can do something like this. In fact, I was really happy that the bike had several gears, as I had mentioned. I think I said it in the beginning that it was no, I didn't. So in fact, I was really happy that the bike had several gears. It's an 18 speed mountain bike because I had to do a lot of uphill pedaling, and this made it easier. Okay, so this is just an example of how you can go back and you can expand on some of the information that you've given if you have time. Okay. All right. Let's go over this answer one more time, students, and repeat after me. Okay. So speak and repeat. Last year for my summer job, I borrowed a red Specialized mountain bike from my elder brother, Tony. I got a job working as a cashier at a grocery store, which was about 10 kilometers from my school, and I simply didn't have enough time to go to my job on time after classes on foot. Unfortunately, there were no public transit options available, and a cab would have been simply too expensive. I didn't have enough money at that time to buy my own bike, nor did I want to, since this job was only for a few months. Therefore, I asked my older brother Tony to lend me his, as he wasn't using it much anyway. Thankfully, my big bro is a kind-hearted person, and he had no problems lending me his bike. It was absolutely useful to borrow the bike instead of trying to walk or buy my own, as I was able to save not only money but also time and energy. This way, when I got home from work, I was still able to have a few hours to complete my studies and hang out with Tony to play some video games. So it worked out well for the both of us in some sense. In fact, I was really happy that the bike had or has several gears. It's an 18-speed mountain bike because I had to do a lot of uphill pedaling, and this made it easier. Okay, so that would be your high band response. I'll post that on our YouTube community board. Again, students, the key to success for speaking part 2 are going through these 5 steps. Okay, just a quick refresher. Step 1, read the question very carefully. It can be a good idea to read the topic question twice. Step 2, figure out that the topic is either a person, an object, a place, an event, and know the elements that are required to describe those. So an object is by appearance, origin, function, and utility. Step 3, think about a couple of possible answers. Don't just think of one and then go with it. Okay? That might not be the best choice. Think of a couple. And choose one that you feel is fairly easy to talk about, but it's also original. So not every other student or candidate is choosing that answer. And often that's not your first one. So if you think, laptop, then maybe every other student is thinking, laptop as well. Okay? So that's why it's often good not to go with your first choice. Okay? All right, and then step 4, write down notes. Write down notes that are usable notes, not information that you would say anyway. Okay, so don't write down the word bike. Obviously, you're going to talk about a bike. Step 5, get your first sentence ready. Make sure it's a direct sentence. Okay, make sure it's a direct sentence. And then develop your ideas using your notes, the card, and your visualization. That's the right way to give a high-level response to part 2 in the exam. Okay, students, that's it for today and for this week of live IELTS classes. Make sure to go to our websites, sign up for the premium package. You can use that Black Friday 40% discount code, BLKFDAY. You are very, very welcome, everyone. I'm glad some of you enjoyed that cute little baby pic at the end as my camera decided to snooze a bit. Again, if you haven't, download our app, link the app to the website as well. And I will see hopefully all of you next week on Wednesday at 15 o'clock Central European Time, where I will continue these live IELTS classes with speaking part 1. You're very, very welcome, Mehdi, Anatoly. You're welcome. Have an awesome rest of your weekend, everyone. Much love from the heart of Budapest. Bye for now.